Hi, Mitchell Levy here. I'm so excited for this time of the day. This is the time where I get to have the most fun, where I get to talk to somebody who's super cool, somebody who is going to talk to us about their values. And so today we have Max Herman. Max, so happy to have you on the show.
Mitchell, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on board.
Oh,
Excited.
you are absolutely welcome. And I'd like to just throw it over the fence. And Max, who are you?
Yeah, so currently I am the VP of sales for a startup out of Philadelphia called NerdWise. And we work with all sorts of different companies to optimize sales strategies and that kind of thing. So get my feet wet and hands dirty with all sorts of fun projects. So I do for work, in my free time. I'm a husband and father of one. Big fan of books and other boring habits like working out, walking the dog, that kind of thing.
But you also were involved in the ministry in the past, and
That's right. Yeah. So my first job out of grad school, I worked for a college ministry, and this particular college ministry had an international arm. So we had missionaries all across the globe. And part of what I was responsible for was supporting them in an administrative fashion. And, I am a Christian, and so that it does guide a lot of the values of my life, and is also what brought me to Philadelphia, which I can talk more about if you're curious on, or yeah, it's in any case, though, it was an experience that I had early in the career. Yeah.
so I we talked a little bit in the green room about your youngin, 16 months old.
16 months old. I just learned how to walk. That has been one of the greatest joys of my life. There have been a number of things that I love and I'm excited about and could talk about for days, but having a kid is, I'm learning a lot day by day. But in any case, yeah, it's such a joy to have a son and watch him grow and be a part of his life.
It's interesting to me when I remember so mine's now 24 years old. So it's been a while since he
Yeah.
was 16 months. I do remember though, prior to him being born, all the people who kept saying to me, your life is going to change forever.
Yeah, I didn't
And
believe it. Yeah.
and I didn't believe it. And then all of a sudden, like within the first minute or two, I'm like, oh, life has changed forever. Did you have something like that, or was it different?
No, Mitchell, life stayed exactly the same, and I knew exactly what to do. Now I
Really?
can. I'm sure you still remember this, and I'm sure a lot of other people watching or listening to this, if they have kids, remember the first moment, in the hospital when they hand you the baby. I remember a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine, was much older than me, but had one or two kids at this point in his life, and he said, Max, when they handed me my daughter, I was so nervous. I held her. I was just so stiff. I was like, don't drop her. Don't drop her. And he said, if I can give you any advice, and this is the best advice I've gotten so far, he just said, relax. And so it became a very sweet moment for me and my son. And it's just like, I can't believe that this is my child. And wow, I have no idea what I'm doing. But that was such a rich moment. Yeah.
Nice. So okay, so you're bringing up a young person,
Hmm.
and if you were going to echo three values that you would love to see your son have, when he goes through his teens and goes to college, what would they be?
So we have a system of values for our home. And I'm about to, in bad form, forget some of them, but is to uh, glorify God by honoring others, having generous hospitality, and gosh, there are two others. I'm so embarrassed that I'm forgetting this at the moment. But in any case, to be able to honor others, not just be kind to them, not just do right by them, but to honor them. It's so much bigger. And I think when you think about, I'll focus on that one. So, um, when you think about, the golden rule is so popular for kids and people really care about that. And it is good. It is a good rule, right? To do unto others what you would want done to yourself, right? But when you think about that, it's like there's so many other things that you care about. It's like, what is it like to honor another person and to care deeply about them, not just be nice to them? And so I would say to think in a bigger picture and to contextualize how you act with wisdom and engage with other people. Like I'm really excited for whenever he goes off into becoming school aged, and to teach him. Hopefully, this may be overzealous or too aspirational, but to help him think through, like, okay, this is true in some situations, but not all situations. But yet, in all situations, you can still honor other people, right?
What is?
I would say that'd be a key one I want to show him.
I hear you. So, by the way, so how many values? 4 or 5?
It's 4, and
Four.
I've
Oh,
got,
don't worry about it. This is perfect. Like if you knew everything off the top of your head, people would think you're prepared. Like that's really okay. And
right.
as soon as you get off, you're gonna kick yourself. Oh my God, I remember these other 2.
100%.
And go on wherever this is on social media and just type in your 4 values if you went afterwards you want.
Got it.
What does honoring others, how does that mean to you? How do you talk about that?
So one of the ways that I talk about that in a business sense, like with my team, it helps me on the one side with sales and understanding who I'm working with. Like, what do you really care about? What are you really concerned with? What is like, why are we here in the first place, right? Like, we wouldn't be having a sales conversation if you didn't have some sort of need, right? And if you don't, that's okay, but we're probably not going to become business partners. And so, in that one sense, it's like, how do I truly learn who you are, what you care about, and then really see, like, are we a fit? And if we're not, no worries, that's okay. And I think that kind of genuineness and caring, I feel like is so rare in sales, and is more or less like a secret sauce, if you will, like just being genuine with people. But on like and I think this is one of the things I've learned in a hard way. But in terms of like, okay, so say someone becomes a client, and granted, NerdWise never makes mistakes, but let's say we make a mistake, or another company.
Of course, we all make mistakes, dude.
We make plenty of them. So we make a mistake and it affects a client. And so I think about some people. I used to work directly with consumers in a previous job, and I feel like in a business sense, we work together to solve problems differently than you do with a consumer, and that's okay because it's personal, right? But I found that the phrase "the punishment should fit the crime" also applies to how you handle a customer's problem, right? So say it's a small mistake, you don't need to refund everything. You don't need to go above and beyond. Maybe all you need to do is send them a gift card so they can go get dinner. Maybe it's a simple fix here or there, but you should rise to the occasion of the magnitude of the problem. And so I think that honors others and respects them appropriately for what's necessary to fix the problem. And when you think about it through that lens, it's like, oh wow, we made a big mistake. We owe them big time, or it's a small mistake, and we can still hear them out and honor them in a way that shows we genuinely care about them.
Sometimes honoring somebody may be nothing more than listening.
I agree.
I often find, particularly when we're talking about a company, if let's say you do make a mistake, and by the way, we won't talk about NerdWise, but we all make a gazillion amount of mistakes every day. It's how we
100%.
address those mistakes that are relevant, right? And
Mm.
so let's say you make a mistake and you honor the client by allowing them to give you updates to the process.
Mm.
Sometimes that's a really big honor. How do you teach what do you do? I'm still on this. I like the business side, but I still want to talk about your 18-year-old's going to college.
Okay.
And he's been taught on how to honor others. What does that mean for him? How does he reflect that?
That's a big question. Truthfully, I think, and to your point around, around listening to other people, to seek to understand rather than to, there's the, I don't know if I'm going to be fact checked on this. I'm going to welcome it, but I believe it was Socrates who said this. Could have been someone else, probably was. But you're given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. It's a popular quote. But in any case, to be able to listen to other people, and as you're engaging with others, like on the college campus, there are so many temptations. There are so many options for what your life could look like. And everyone is going through, it's kind of, college is almost like, this may be a hot take, but college is almost like middle school all over again, where you don't fit in and everyone's new and everyone's just faking it and hoping for the best, right? And so I feel like to be the kind of person that listens well, to be the friend that people can go to in a time of need or trouble. I mean, I remember those friends in college. They were incredibly shaping in who I became. I don't think they were trying to do that. I think they just listened. And it meant so much, right? So if he can be that kind of person, he will have far exceeded me.
Nice. Oh, by the way, I just checked and it was Epictetus.
Thanks.
Who is that's the cool, by the way, that's the cool part about today's world is we don't need to go to the encyclopedia and physically try to look up that, and looking up a quote, oh my God, that'd be impossible. But you Google it and it had 3 different sources. That doesn't necessarily mean it's true, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got to be discerning.
Yeah.
But anyway, going back to what you, and I don't know how to pronounce, if somebody could pronounce Epictetus, I'd love to get it's, I'm sure I know that can't be right, but that would be the way I do it. What do you think?
I'll side with you on this one. I'm really not sure. Spelling and grammar were not my best subjects.
All right. So I love that concept. So that concept that you want to make sure your son, that value you want to make sure your son grows up with, that to me seems like the same value you'd like to make sure your staff focuses on in dealing with clients.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And I think I also, again, I learned a lot of lessons the hard way rather than the easy way. I read a quote once from General Mattis that the reason why people should read books is so that they can learn from other people's mistakes rather than their own. And I'm sure someone else said that too. But in any case, I learned that mistake the hard way, that the way you make someone a customer, so our staff members are dealing with people and they're having, the customer's having a hard time with something, or we've made a mistake or what have you, to just hear them out and to let them know you are valued and as a person, as our client, and I care genuinely about you and your needs and making sure that your operation is running well. And if I have fallen short of making that happen, just listening in that way, like that will do far more in terms of long-term trust, and will do far more in terms of compared to like just throwing money at a problem, right? So just being able to hear someone, like I listened a lot to, or I've learned a lot from Chris Voss, the FBI negotiator, who's become super popular now. And just the 2 things that he talks about a lot are mirroring and labeling. Are you familiar with these? Yeah.
But go ahead, please. Sure.
So mirroring is just like repeating back key pieces of what someone has said to you. And then, so sounds like, I won't try and demo it without you having said something, but in any case, saying back those key things shows them you heard, like you actively are listening. You know what they said. And labeling sounds like this is really important to you. Sounds like if we would have gotten this right, this could have been a lot better. Or sounds like this really hurt more than I think it did, didn't it? And people are like, oh, you know me so well. And it's like, I'm just guessing. I could be wrong, but I just care about making sure that we make this right for you.
So why do you think, if it goes back to Epictetus or Socrates or whoever, right? Couple thousand years, And we've been told that we have two ears and one mouth. Why do you think people speak more than they listen? Or maybe that's not a good assumption. Maybe that's not true everywhere.
Well, as an extrovert, I make that mistake all too often, where I talk way too much. Gosh, I mean, I could hypothesize for days on why I think people probably talk too much. And it is interesting, isn't it? This desire to be heard. And like, so C.S. Lewis, I know this is C.S. Lewis, has a quote that man's greatest desire is to be truly known and truly loved, or sorry, fully known and fully loved. And his greatest fear is to be fully known and not fully loved. So people see who you are and they turn away from you, right? And so to think about that, it's like everyone's projecting what they think people want, and they're talking so much, and they don't want to listen. They just want people to accept them. We're all running around like that middle schooler or college student, hoping that people will accept us. We're just doing a lot better job playing pretend today, I think. And so what that looks like a lot of times is it's just like an insecurity that we are talking so much that we hope people will accept us and love us and listen to us and those kind of things. But just listening gives people that affirmation that they're really desiring.
I'm kind of curious. So I assume when you hire people, you're hiring people that by definition are better listeners than others. But what happens if you make a mistake, or if somebody interviews different and then when they get into the workplace, they're not really who you thought they would be?
So I ask for and look for a few things. One, so obviously, like, you want to do the general best practices of understanding, like, have you done this job before? Do you have a track record of doing it well? Do you enjoy it? Like, if you're, like, we just hired someone to help with operations and administration. And if some people I talked to were like, I'll do it. But other people were excited about it. Like, they loved it. And just that energy, like, this is what I look for. It's like, what is your attitude towards this role and towards working with us? Like, are you just an excited person? Can you just be a pleasure to be around? And that is one of the key things I look for throughout the entire interview. And then I ask them I did not come up with this on my own, but it does help me understand what someone really cares about. And there's no right answer to this, but I ask them to stack rank or priority rank three things: work-life balance, compensation, and impact at work. All are super important. All things someone will get in working with NerdWise or just about any company, right? But what's the most important thing to you? So if I have a salesperson that tells me I'm hiring for a sales role and I say, I care about work-life balance, like, tell me more about that. Like, did you come from a role where you were overworked? Maybe we can let that slide. But if you're a salesperson and you're not prioritizing compensation or impact at work, like, we're going to have a hard time with you as a salesperson, right? But maybe it's another role where compensation isn't key, right?
I'm going to interrupt. So if that happens, do you course correct midway?
No, I just try to be, but I just try to be curious, where it's like, so I'll let them stack rank, and it's always makes people super nervous. And I also like to see how they do under pressure, right? Especially if they're engaging with clients. Can you handle a challenging question on the spot? So it's multifaceted in what I'm trying to uncover with that. But let's say they handle it with grace and poise, and the salesperson says work-life balance, impact at work, compensation, right? I'll typically, if it's an answer I'm curious about, or I don't understand, I'll just ask, work-life balance, really? Tell me more about that. Why that over anything else? Or I'll probably have gathered more info about their previous job and what that was like. But yeah, it allows me to dig in and see, like, what do you value? What do you prioritize? And how can we make sure we're giving you that if you work here? Because if they care about something that we're not going to provide, I don't know what that might be, but let's say it's something that they care a lot about, we can't deliver it to them. I want them to know that from day one before they come on board, and we spend 3 to 5 months together, and it's like, oh, gee, I'm so sorry, right? So I want to make sure that they're really happy and coming on board too.
So you clearly feel their energy or listen and feel who they are and their excitement level. Now I've done this, so I'm sure you've done this, where somebody came in to interview for a particular job, and I actually might say, you know, this particular role requires these characteristics, and the way you're talking, it feels like this other job might be more suitable for you.
Mm.
Should I talk to you about that? And I'm just kind of, I actually have these conversations, and part of it is I don't mind if I made a mistake,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the person said, no, I really want this, and then I'll ask again, tell me why.
Mm.
Can you think of a scenario where something like that happened to you?
So I think a lot about. I don't know that the way that we interview today is the best. So my favorite author is Malcolm Gladwell, and he on his podcast talks about nihilism in terms of interviewing. And so he shares in this particular podcast, it is really stuck in my mind, where he'll have one interview, he'll hire someone, and they'll work out great. Every time he's had that happen. It's like, okay, one, you must be just really lucky, but also I think there's a challenge to uncover everything about someone. It's like going on a first date and you're like, you know what, we should get married on the first date. It's like you gotta learn a lot real fast if you want to make that claim or ask that question. So I think I like to figure out, like, are they a good fit for this particular role, and trust their judgment in terms of applying for it. And then maybe we uncover 3 to 6 months later, you really are excelling in this other area, and you really understand how it works because you've experienced it, already started working in that direction. And so then we can find a better fit once you're already in the organization. That's kind of how I think through it. It could be the wrong way to do it, but it's how my mind works thus far.
I'm not convinced there's a absolute right or absolute wrong. It sounds to me like you're focused on the relationship and the success and the well-being of essentially all the stakeholders you're working with.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because if you're not happy, Mitchell, when you're in a job, like, you're going to be not engaged, you're not going to produce your best work, you're surely not going to be happy, and you're probably going to be working your way out as soon as you possibly can, right? And so I feel like my job as an employer or as a boss is to be able to make sure that you're getting everything you need and we're checking all your boxes, right? I think in a lot of ways the power dynamic has shifted from where the employer holds all the cards to now where the employees are holding a lot more.
It's interesting to me. So I'm listening to you. I'm thinking about the values. Clearly, servant leadership is a big one. Having the intent and commitment to do the right thing has come through. Your integrity seems pretty sound. We haven't really talked about you do share the stage of others. Does seem like you show respect. You came early for the meeting. You do seem coachable. We haven't talked about vulnerability yet.
Where do you want to begin?
You tell me.
Yeah, so I think I'm really not sure where to go with this, to be candid with you, but I do think you mentioned like integrity and that kind of thing. Nothing pains me more than when I feel like I've lied to someone. Like when I have told them what I believe to be true, whether it's about our team or our product or something I've said, and I'm wrong. Oh my gosh, like and having to go eat crow, to say like, yeah, I was wrong. But I will happily say I was wrong, but that inner feeling, that inner guilt of, gosh, I've done wrong by this person. I just lied to them. That keeps me up at night.
That's interesting. But question. Do you mind if we or an opportunity, maybe a learning thing? Do you feel like at the time you shared what you shared that you had the most knowledge that you could have possibly had?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if at a particular point in time you've had the most knowledge you possibly could have had, and you suggested something, and you subsequently learned that what you shared was wrong, why is it your fault?
Well, I do believe one of the other things I would share is like a value of mine. I read the book Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink a few years ago, and that book has really like been seared in my mind as something that's critical. And it's like I want to rush to the scene of the crime here and say it was me. It's not your fault. I messed up. It's me. I'm so sorry. I know I told you the best bit of information that I had at the time. It seems my info was wrong, and so I'm wrong, and that's okay. But I want you to know, like, my intent, for what it's worth. It's not going to fix the problem that I was wrong now, but my intent was not to lie to you. My intent was
Mm.
to be completely truthful and full of integrity to you, and so I'm deeply sorry that I let you down.
I might encourage you not to beat yourself up about
I appreciate that.
doing just as an aside, just because as much as always think that the world is ubiquitous and information is continually shared amongst all parties, it
Mm,
really isn't. And
mm,
and I just think if you've done your best to see who you are and see and do the best you can, it's hard in retrospect to beat yourself up if you did the best you could at the time you did it.
I appreciate that. I really do appreciate the encouragement on that.
Oh, you're welcome. That's always what I did when I was sound the board of a Nasdaq company, and I always wanted to make sure if I when I finally made a decision that I had as much data as I could, and
Mm,
I've done as much as I could to learn as much as I could.
yeah, no, it's really good. I'm a big Ray Dalio fan. I was listening to Adam Grant's book Originals. It's a little old at this point, like written in 2015, I think. But to hear him talk about Bridgewater and how they, constantly fight for the source of truth, like that is, I think to have all the pieces of data in front of you and then make a decision. I think that's critical.
Yeah, it's interesting. All right, hey, listen, if you're listening to this, if people are listening and they're interested, how best should they reach out to you?
Well, really, the best way you can find me is probably on LinkedIn. You can just search Nerdwise or Max Herman. You can also go to the Nerdwise website. You can find me there. There it is.
There you go. Perfect. Thank you. All right, there's two more questions I want to ask, and one is based on how this interview went. Is there a particular question that I didn't ask you that I should?
I thought a lot about this in advance, and which value or which of your principles was the hardest to learn. Something I could probably talk about for a long, long time.
Awesome. That's a great question. Let me ask you that question. Thanks for the prompting.
Yeah.
Which of your values was the hardest to learn? And maybe why or whatever that is that you feel is worth sharing.
Yeah. So I would always, so you can tell whenever I let someone down, it sits pretty heavily with me, right? And so I would, at a previous company, make promises based on what I knew to be true. And sometimes we just couldn't deliver on that. And I would get so frustrated, feel like it was my fault. And I would just have steam coming out of my ears and anger and frustration several times, constantly. Um, and I learned, a friend of mine taught me, he sat me down and he said, Max, you can't control what happens. You can only control how you respond to it. And that has been a lesson that took me months and months and months to understand, even after he shared it to me. But once I grasped it, it was like a weight off my shoulders.
Hmm. What a great closing.
Hmm.
I love that. Max, thanks so much for spending time with us today.
Oh, well, thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Oh, right back at you. And listen, for those that are still here, this is the time to spread some cred dust. So click on the like button, share with your friends, write down the aha moment that most resonated with you and share it on the platform you're listening or watching it to today. And I look forward to seeing you at the next episode of Leaders Living Their Values. Take care, everyone. Bye now.